The global wealth confiscation has begun. This isn't just what happened in Cyprus with the bail-ins. I'm going to show you how this is going on silently all across the world. Let's get into the information right away, and I hope that you'll share it with others and realize how serious this really is. This is TD Canada Trust, one of the largest banks in Canada here, and it also is in the US and other places. But this is their financial services terms. Now, most people don't even read this here. However, this was brought to my attention. Thank you to that person, and I want to show you exactly what they say in here and how this relates to something else that happened recently. Dormant or abandoned accounts. This section here just stuck in the middle here so that nobody would notice it. Accounts which are inactive or presumed to be abandoned will be subject to escheat. This means that the deposits will become the property of the federal government in accordance with the federal law and transferred to the Bank of Canada. Yes, that's right. The central bank needs your money because they just print it up. Apparently, their printing press isn't working, I guess. So they need to take your actual dormant, what they call dormant accounts, and this amount of time is 10 years the way they say it now, but of course that will be changing. In fact, recently you'll see that this happened in Australia. Canberra reaps $360 million from inactive bank accounts, but in Australia that terminology is actually 3 years. So they were able to take $360 million back, and they were taking it into their central bank, of course, saying that, well, you're not using the money, so we'll take it. And right at the bottom here, it says more than half of the $700 million seized from these accounts were taken in the last year alone. So they're ready. They're really getting ready for the bail-in strategy. Now, speaking of bail-ins, you saw that happen in Cyprus. Cyprus, they actually skimmed off the top of all of these accounts, taking large percentages of these individuals' bank accounts, and that was to fund the banks. They said that they needed to be recapitalized. And that's exactly what they did. They did a great job of it, and the public took it, and they just didn't do much about it. They protested a little bit, but that's all said and done now. Of course, that couldn't happen anywhere else. Cyprus is just a little place, and that would never happen anywhere. But let's take a look through this. This is the Economic Action Plan for Canada. Yes, that's right. Everything is just fine in Canada. Nothing to see here. But what is this? This is supporting jobs and growth. So they said the government proposes to implement a, quote, bail-in regime for the systemically important banks. The regime will be designed to ensure that in the unlikely event that a systematically important bank depletes its capital, that means if they screw up, the bank can be recapitalized. And how will they do that? Well, just ask Cyprus. They skim off the top of the accounts. That's exactly how they plan on doing this, although they continuously push the message that that's not going to happen. They actually came out later on after the budget report came out, and this news actually came out into the mainstream media, at least somewhat into the mainstream media, and they actually said, that's not what we meant. We have these special funds set up, and we'll use those to recapitalize the bank. So I have the question then, why didn't you use those special funds instead of receiving a bailout from the Federal Reserve? That's how you know they're lying to you when they come up with silly things like this. The Canadian banks, among others, received bailouts from the Federal Reserve after the financial crisis. Now, why would they do that? If they said specifically after this came out, this budget report came out, saying that they would use these special funds. Those special funds don't exist, or maybe if they do exist, they're not going to use them. They're going for the bail-in strategy. And if you don't believe me, take a look at these next articles right here. This is out of Reuters. Poland reduces its public debt through pension funds overhaul. What does that mean, a pension funds overhaul? I mean, that sounds simple. It sounds something that I would just skim over and go to the next article. However, they actually seized private assets and put them into the state funds. funds. Regardless of how you look at that, that is illegal. They can't just move your money around, even though they said, look, it's still yours. That's not how it works. You can't do that. You can't take private assets, put them under the state. That is not how this is supposed to work. That's the kind of schemes that we need to be looking for, because they're going to do this more often. Let's look at this here. This is out of CNN. Europe bank rescue plan would hit investors. But see, unfortunately, that isn't really the important part. Let's look at the bottom part where it says, in the event of a future bank crisis, European finance ministers agreed that there would be bank bail-ins instead of bail-outs, where investors will be forced to reduce the struggling financial institutions. See, that's right. Investors are one thing. When you invest your money, you're taking a risk. But when you put it in the bank, most people think that their money is safe. See, that's the real unfortunate part here, is that an individual, a grandmother, just puts her money in the bank. She wants to keep it safe. She gets her government money and all this sort of thing. But they don't realize that they could be subject to a bank bail-in. That's what worries me. And they are going for the global wealth confiscation right now. It's taking place already. We don't have to wait for it to come. They're calling us conspiracy theorists. They're calling us all these silly names, but it has already occurred. It's going on right now, and I'm showing you statistics right here. I'm showing you the articles. I'm showing you the history of why this is so serious. Let's get into what they said. Large depositors with over 100,000 euros to be the first to suffer losses when banks fail. Sure, that's how it works. The so-called wealthy individuals, the individuals who generally have small businesses, who give people jobs, are the ones who are going to suffer first. So what are they going to do? They're going to fire some employees. That's going to bring unemployment up. And what does that do to the European economy? It just makes it worse. And then the ECB has to step in once again. Then the IMF steps in, and you know what happens when what they had in Greece, the Troika, starts making decisions. You start having the assets of this country being sold off. That's the way it's going to work. All of your assets, all those main things, the Colosseum, the CN Tower, all these different iconic buildings around the world, I simply fear that these will be sold off to corporations, because that's the way this is going to work. They are bankrupting the nations intentionally, and then they bankrupt the individual so that they have to get on their knees and beg for the government to help them. Look at this. New Zealand. The Reserve Bank is in the final stages of implementing a system of managing bank failure called an open bank resolution. The scheme will put all bank depositors on the hook for bailing out their bank. This is out of the Green Party. They are saying this right now. I can't believe that all of these countries around the world are proposing the same kind of thing, the bail-in strategy that took place and actually occurred in Cyprus. You have things like pension funds being looted in Detroit and also in Poland and other places as well. This is only the topics for today on this video here, but I'm trying to show you specifically that they are doing this right now. And when I have individuals commenting on here, and you have the news media saying the same thing, that this isn't going to happen, and it never has happened, and everything is just fine. Look at the stock market, but that is not the case. The stock market might be high, but the central banks are buying up the shares, pumping it up. So of course they're going to be higher. That's the way this works. They pump up the stock market through easy money policies to the individual banks, but they're also directly buying up the shares. So of course these stock markets can rise and rise and rise, but the individual is going to suffer the most. I wrote about it in my book right here. You can see the monetary base increasing. That's what's happened. There's no real wealth anymore. You just have the monetary base increasing. Money printing is taking place, and there is no wealth for the real individual. Now, I want to finish off by saying this information needs to be spread to everyone else. I hope that you will share this video with everyone you know, or at the very least, create your own video. If you have a blog, write about an article about it. Talk about what the bail-in strategy means. Is that first, the individuals, the so-called wealthy individuals, they're going to get their money excavated, and then of course then it's you. But it even could take place at the exact same time, but they could take less of a haircut. Either way, people are going to be hurt by this, and this information needs to be spread out there. Please get it out to everyone you know. I just wanted to also say thank you to every single one of the subscribers. You guys are great. I love all the shares, all the comments. I'm trying to reply to every single comment. You know that I do. It There are just so many, but I try to go through and give you some sort of comment back. I read all the comments, and I hope that you appreciate me getting back to you on those. And for those who aren't already a subscriber, please don't forget to become an insider, to where I give all my best intel for free, and it is available at themoneygps.com. You scroll down to the bottom and fill in your email address, and you get occasional emails from me with good, short, concise info.